welcome everyone to the 3PGC webinar. Forgot to get my little sheet. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles to people throughout the world. You can learn more about the Three Principles Global Community at 3pgc.org. Today we have Elsie Spittle. For any of you who have heard Elsie speak before, you know that this is a really wonderful treat for us, and I'm really grateful that you had agreed to do this webinar, Elsie. So Elsie Spittle has been an internationally recognized consultant for over 4 decades. She's in the unique position of having known Sydney Banks, originator of the Three Principles, before he had his epiphany. She witnessed the extraordinary change that occurred in him and the unprecedented impact his work had on thousands of people, and how this has brought about a new paradigm in the fields of psychology and psychiatry. Elsie had the privilege of receiving on-the-job training directly from Mr. Banks, traveling with him to address mental health practitioners, educators, and others seeking a deeper understanding of life. She's considered the first formal teacher of the principles after Sydney Banks. She's highly regarded as a public speaker and in her ability to reach the audience via a feeling that touches the heart and soul. Elsie is co-founder of the Three Principles School based on Salt Spring Island, British Columbia. And Elsie's latest book is Nuggets of Wisdom, Learning to See Them. Her website is www.3phd.net, and I will post all this underneath the video recording on YouTube for any of you watching it. So you'll be able to read that and see Elsie's website. So again, Elsie, I'm so grateful that you agreed to do this webinar today, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bonnie. And I was thrilled to be invited by Three Principles Global Community, and I thank you for introducing me, and I thank 3PGC for inviting me. And I want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. I think we're off to a wonderful start of 2017. I know I feel really grateful and blessed to be able to talk with you all and to do this webinar for people from different countries. As I said earlier, you know, some are familiar from other countries, and I'm glad that the names are up there, so that also helps give me a clue. You know, it's so interesting when I do these webinars or any kind of program where I do public speaking. There's this energy that bubbles up, you know, this energy that we're all made of. And that's my preparation, is that energy bubbling up and preparing me. And it's not that I know what I'm going to say. I really don't. I was sitting in the front room just quiet as I waited to come on at 9. And I didn't know what I was going to say, but I just felt this energy inside. And I knew that that's what would talk for me. And that's one of the things that I really want us to look at this morning or this evening or wherever you are, is just to see and honor what's in us. You know, so often we gain an insight and it takes us a distance on our journey. And then life levels out a little bit and we want more. And wanting more is part of our human nature, to want more, you know, to be the searcher, looking for more. And what I keep discovering over time is that the more I settle into what I already have, what I already feel inside, that deep feeling of just living in life with peace of mind, with contentment. It's not that you're having insight every moment of the day, but it's like you're sitting in peace. And the more we honor that and respect that and are grateful for what we already have, then more comes in without seeking. It's like being grateful and appreciative of what we have opens the door to more of our true identity coming out. And it's so interesting because this past week, as I started working again in January, I was so grateful to have almost 2 months off, November and December. And again, I feel like I'm sort of semi-retired, that I'm taking more time off in my life. And my husband was very encouraging of that. He'd say to me gently but firmly, you want to walk your talk, Elsie. You want to live in your well-being. And I thought, well, I am. When I'm sharing this, I am living in my well-being. And to the best of my ability, I come from that place when I'm sharing. But what I started to notice is that sometimes we can be in such service to the world that we lose sight of being in service to self. And I mean the big self, that spiritual part of us that is our source of energy, our source of well-being. And so because I really trust Ken, and many, many, many years ago, 4 decades ago, when I was thinking I was pretty hot stuff because I got to travel with Sid in the early days and had this on-the-job training, at one point when I was feeling particularly full of myself, Sid called me to his home, and I thought, oh, goody, I'm going to get my ticket to travel again. And I don't know where we're going, but I'm just delighted. And when I got there, instead of giving me a ticket, well, he did give me a ticket, but it was a ticket to kind of stop and look at what I already have and not to be wanting more. And one of the things he said in what he shared with me was to take care of myself and my family and to listen to Ken. And I must admit, in my ego, I was thinking, yeah, but I'm the hotshot here. I'm the one that's getting to travel with you, Sid. Ken isn't. So, what's that about? But I really trusted Sid, and I felt the truth of it. Beyond my ego, I felt the truth penetrate. And so when I got home, filled with dismay that I wasn't going to be able to travel with Sid again at that time, I found myself looking at Ken with new eyes and new appreciation. And my ears opened a little more. And I began to hear the wisdom in him. And it was really enlightening. And so fast forward 4 decades where he's saying to me again, hon, you want to walk your talk more. And you want to take time for self. And so I listened to that more quickly and with more depth and started to explore that over the last year. And I found that time for self, when we can, and I feel very fortunate that after 40 years, I'm able to take a little more time for self, for true self. And I know everybody in this call may not be in the same boat, but I want to say that it's not about time, the length of time. It's more about the positioning. That positioning inside of acknowledging, yes, it might be 5 minutes that you really settle into your true identity and take a moment to just be still and see what comes out of that stillness. Not looking for anything, not looking to be grateful, not looking with the intention of anything other than be still. That's the best I can say. And as I discovered more stillness in my inside, it wasn't like there were numerous insights that came to me. It was just the simple enjoyment of living. Enjoying my surroundings more, enjoying my friends more, enjoying myself more and my family, my husband, seeing nature with new eyes, as if there was another dimension to nature that I hadn't noticed before. And I thought, this is really beautiful. And I just learned more about the nature of living. And that was the first time that phrase came to mind, the nature of living. And I just bathed in that feeling. And then when it came time for me to come back sort of into the world and to do this work again, this, I hate to say work, to share again, I was invited to do something for a colleague in another city. And I went there with a quiet mind, once again, not knowing what to offer or what would be helpful. And so my colleague and I met maybe an hour beforehand, before I was going to speak to his group. And I still didn't know what to offer, but I just felt myself in a feeling of well-being and gratitude. I looked around the hotel room that I was in, and it had a beautiful view. And I thought, I can hardly believe it. It's like pinch myself that I get to share this powerful, transformative message with people. How did I get so fortunate, to be born in a time and to have a relationship, to know Sydney Banks? How did that happen? And then just to live, to be in the moment, in this stillness again, with nothing really coming to mind. It was weird and it was wonderful. So it was weirdly wonderful to be in this nothingness with very, very little content. And yet when I came time to do the work, the sharing, it came out. This wisdom that is part of this nothingness came out in the moment, just intuitively in service. And I drew out of the audience, so I got a feeling for what would be helpful to them. And as we started a conversation, what I could see in the conversation is that they were feeling that the feeling that was very tangible in the room, they felt that feeling was coming from me and they attributed it to me. And so I knew that was where to introduce the spiritual fact that it was them, that it was their true identity rising to the surface and embracing the feeling and contributing to the feeling. And so that was how much of our morning was spent, was just to help people see that it's you. We are mind. We are divine mind in action. We are divine consciousness in action. We are divine thought in action. And when I say divine, to me what that means it means like non-material, not of this world. It means and points people to this formless energy that even the physicists talk about. Not matter, but the energy before matter. And that's what I was feeling before I started to share with you all, is that formless energy percolating in me. And the deep feeling of gratitude to experience that feeling. And to see all the ramifications of it, all the manifestations of it, that's the educator. That's our grounding in action. So many people think in the Three Principles community, think our grounding is about being able to articulate the principles. And there's a lot of stress attached to that. You know, people will say to me, I don't really understand the principles yet. And if they do, they'll say, well, I could speak a little bit to thought, but I couldn't talk about mind or consciousness. Or somebody might say I could speak to mind, but I'm not sure about consciousness, and so on. And they'll say, someone said to me the other day, I don't know how to separate them. They said to me, I've always felt the oneness of the principles, so I struggle with trying to separate them and define them. And when I'm hearing that, I'm blown away that her wisdom, you know, that she's seeing the oneness, which is far more important than her ability to be able to define them. And so that was part of our conversation, was to honor what she does see and forget about what you don't see or what you don't understand. When you honor what you see and what you feel, that's grounding. And from there, then, more articulation will just come out naturally, without thinking about how to articulate. It will just spill out, you know. I remember when I first started to share, the only thing I had was thought creates feeling. That was the first insight I had that started me on my journey. And although I was really very touched by Sid inviting me to go on that first trip with him, when Drs. Pransky and Mills invited him to the University of Eugene in Oregon, I thought to myself, I have nothing to say. You know, what could I possibly say to mental health professionals? And I'll never forget this. He said, you know, dearie, just share what you know. And I said, well, I got one thing, Sid. I know one thing. And he said, share that. And what I experienced in that was, okay, like I trusted him more than I trusted myself. I trusted his level of consciousness. I want to clarify that. I trusted his level of consciousness because by that time I knew Sid had found something beyond the form of certainly what I knew and beyond the form of what I was beginning to see that society knew and was aware of. And so when he said, just talk about what you know, share what you know, okay, that touched the truth in me, that touched my true identity. And while I was with him, his well-being, his presence comforted me. Even though I had personal thinking about, you know, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? All these mental health professionals and so on and so forth. His well-being was contagious, and it comforted me while I was with him. When it came time for me to actually share with the audience, I was terrified, absolutely paralyzed with fear. And I just babbled something for a few minutes. And then what came out was, oh yeah, right, Sid said to share what I know. And so I shared what I knew, that I'd found a way to be happy. And I shared the insight, thought creates feeling. And all of a sudden, I found myself grounded. I found myself centered in that deep feeling. And it wasn't until later that I caught up with what happened then in that 15 or 20 minutes when I shared what I knew. Because when I shared that one simple little insight, it just poured out. Various experiences attached to that and what I observed in other people, and how, as they were finding their well-being, how that was transformative in their lives, in their families' lives, and in their work. And so I shared that, and I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't really noticing what was going on with the audience. I just was in that space. After the fact, it was like I, in a sense, came to when I finished what I had to say. And then there was just a quiet. And I didn't get nervous about, well, okay, it's only such a short time. I should fill up more time. You know, Sid wanted me to talk for about a half an hour, and I've only talked for, only about 15 minutes. So, you know, I just knew intuitively to just be still. And I looked around the room, and that's when I noticed and felt the stillness in the room. That was all at that time. I just noticed the stillness and that people were very attentive. Quite a bit later, months, it dawned on me that it was the feeling that stilled people and brought out their true identity, brought out their wisdom. And I thought, oh my, this is what living in grace is. We all have that capacity. Grace is right inside of us. We are grace. And when we come from grace, everybody, for the most part, will join us. And I say for the most part, because I don't want to paint this rosy picture of, everything is peaches and cream all the time. I know that also from personal experience, that there were times when I would go to a gathering where Sid was speaking, or to a seminar or a conference, and I would be just disturbed, uneasy inside for whatever reason. Usually it was because I knew kind of the jig was up, and that here was an opportunity to grow, and my human nature was scared because there was more learning, and I didn't always come to more learning or to change with grace. Sometimes my human nature, as all of us do, sometimes my human nature would go, whoa, I'm fine where I am. Thank you very much. And so I'd go and I'd listen to Sid, but I'd be thinking, oh gosh, he's been talking for an hour. When is he going to stop? And I'd have all kinds of personal thinking going on. And by the end of his talk, because I was resisting it, I was anxious, my head would feel so big, so full of stuff, of personal thinking, that if I tried to put on the hat that I wore when I came in, it wouldn't have fit. My head would have been too big of stuff for that hat to fit. So that's what I mean when I say that for the most part, our true nature will resonate with truth, with that depth of feeling. But our human nature may play games. However, that's where consciousness comes in, is when we notice that, not to be concerned about. Just be grateful that you notice it, and the gratitude will move you on. Isn't that beautiful? That's what consciousness is about. For me, that's what I see the most value of consciousness. I know, again, in the community, consciousness, it brings our thinking to life, and it does. That's true. But for me, the deeper part of consciousness is it helps us see with no judgment. It helps us see with gratitude and with grace. Because in those days when I would feel, angst and concerned and judgmental about, Sid talking too long or whatever, then I would judge myself when I realized what I was doing. And I think, God, Elsie, you should know better. You've been around this now for 5 years and you're still going on and on, and I'd really judge myself. I'd judge Sid. I'd look at Ken and I'd judge him because he was happy while Sid was talking. I'd think, what's about that? He's my partner. He should be joining me in my misery. And then again, gradually, I began to see a deeper level of consciousness is that, oh my word, it's about being aware of our experience, and even more so, aware of who and what we are. And then there's no judgment. There's just gratitude. There's just appreciation. And that's how consciousness looks to me. And that to me is what ties in so beautifully with the nature of living. So often I get practitioners that talk with me who feel judgmental about their thinking, still get kind of wrapped up in their thinking and that they should know better and be able to live for longer times in well-being. And it's like, don't even go there. I'm not even interested in that. I'm so interested in the spiritual fact, that you're aware of that. Like, how cool is that? That you're aware of that. Case closed. Let's explore our ability to see. And you can feel the shift when that happens. It's like it opens the door to seeing again that we're all consciousness. We're all mind. We're all thought. And when we honor that, and we talk about wisdom coming out from here, that it's not about wisdom, or it's not about the principles have got our back, or about applying the principles, or about, the source. Somebody did this yesterday with me, talking with me, and it was like, the source out here. And I said, here, it's here. And she went, wow. And she said, that's so subtle. She hadn't realized she was honoring so much how we're all connected with nature and with each other. And again, honoring the oneness of that the wonder of that oneness. But it was like out here instead of here. It's here. We're here, you know. And so the last thing I want to say before I check in with you is a word came to me a while back about this honoring self with the big S. And it was like honorship. I know that word doesn't, you know, it's not in the dictionary, but it's like honorship, you know, because there's worship, but it was honorship. That's what I'm trying to tie together. It's honorship of who and what we are, and owning that, you know, owning that with honor, not with, you know, like, but oh my goodness, we are what we're looking for. And that's how we end up being our best friend and our best teacher, and that we end up self-educating for the rest of our life. It's not to say that we stop listening to one another and that we can continue to learn from one another, but we're not dependent on that outside learning, because we know true learning comes from the inside out. Like I learned from the people I was talking with yesterday. Absolutely felt it primed me for today. But it was my priming. It was my listening to them that brought it to life for me. And that's what I'm offering you and encouraging you to honor more deeply who you are. And from that comes a deeper level of the nature of living more and more of the time in well-being. So I'd love to check in with you. I look at your faces and I feel your stillness, but at the same time, I'd love to hear, and I'll give you a few moments here, if you have any comments to add or questions to ask.
And I'm just going to remind everyone, you can unmute yourself by scrolling down to the lower left-hand corner of your screen and clicking on the microphone. And when you're finished talking, if you would mute yourself again, that will help with background noise. If for any reason you can't unmute yourself, there is also a chat box. So you go down to the bottom of the screen and click chat, and you can type it in, and I'll be able to read it to Elsie.
Elsie, this is Bill Pettit.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
So nice to see your face.
Well, it's nice to see you. You look wonderful.
As do you. The mutual admiration.
Takes one to know one, huh? I'm moved and touched by what you said, and I always recall Sid saying, the most selfless thing you could do is to be selfish about having peace of mind, and you can only give from a place of fullness. You can't give from an empty basket, and I heard that just maybe even deeper, and just the idea for myself. Gosh knows you've known me for 30 some years now, and just the idea of the value of quiet, and living more quietly inside. Like you say, it doesn't mean that you don't do anything, but you can take to what you do a quiet that leads to more efficient of you doing whatever you do, and usually bringing out the best in those with whom you do it. And I just thank you for reminding and for your message. I really appreciate it. Really do.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
I love what Bill said, because people hunger for that peace. They may come to you with a request for something else. They may come to you with a request for team development or counseling or education in some format or another, to strategize, to help them fundraise for a not-for-profit, numerous requests. And you may even have a module for whatever it is you're offering. But it's not your module, and it's not even the disguise of their request. It's that people are hungry for peace of mind, especially with what's going on in the world today. There is such utter confusion and chaos, and in a way it looks like we've gone back 100 years in some capacity. And I won't even speak to what that looks like. You all know. And for the most part, it just washes over. It's not that I'm unaware of it. I'm very aware of it. And I tune in from time to time, in a manner of speaking, so I have my finger on the pulse of the world. And then I'm done. Because I know the answer isn't out there in the world. I know that when I get with people, what speaks to them more than my words is the feeling I come from. And so, for example, someone that I was speaking with yesterday who has a wonderful strategy and a wonderful module that they offer to their clients, by the end of our 2 hours together. And again, I press the point that it's not about time that gives impact. It's about the amount of wisdom you live in that gives impact and draws out their wisdom. And they knew at the end of that 2 hours, we're just going to let that go. We're going to let that whole module go, because the core piece of that is well-being. And we're going to be in well-being when we offer what we offer, and we're going to speak and connect the principles with well-being. And so they had the courage, because of the insight that came out of them, to throw away their module and be in the moment with their clients. And they actually said to me, because there was one point many years ago when I was quite proud of myself for all the form I had in my training. When I started off, I had nothing. I just followed Sid's lead, where, as you know, Bill, he just sat in his chair on the stage and just talked from his soul. And that's what brought people awake. And I just intuitively followed that lead, and it was very comfortable, and I saw the impact of that. And then I started to work with Dr. Mills. And I saw how he, with his background as a psychologist, and that he was used to writing and doing the flip charts and everything. And I was so impressed. I thought, that's so cool. I just felt like a dummy because I had nothing to write on the board. And frankly, I felt self-conscious at standing up to write on the flip chart. And so I thought, oh, I wish I could do what Roger does. And finally, I gained some ease in doing that. And as I gained more confidence, I could stand up there with ease, and I could take responses from the audience and write them down. And soon my one flip chart grew to like 30 around the room, and I'd have the whole room, training room, filled with charts. So proud of this. And then one day when I was doing training for about 30 people, and the room was full of intake from the audience, at the end of the day, I thought, oh boy, now we're really primed for tomorrow. I have all this material here. And I said to the cleaning staff at the hotel, please don't get rid of those flip charts because we'll start again tomorrow morning with them. No problem, no problem. I come in the next morning, it's a bare room. There are no charts on the walls, and I just freaked out. I went running to the cleaning staff. Where are these flip charts? I need my flip charts. They're in the garbage, long gone. Garbage man took them this morning. Oh my word, I was bereft. I thought, well, we'll just start from scratch. But there was such an aliveness in starting from scratch and being in the moment with the group and just having conversation, not taking time to write and all that. And please don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying don't write on the board or anything like that. You do what feels right to you. I'm just sharing what it was for me. I found that the more I wrote on the board, the more intellectual questions I had from people about how-tos. The less I wrote, the more I just came from that core of well-being and wisdom, the more their wisdom came to the surface. And that's the kind of conversation we had, was wisdom to wisdom, not intellect to intellect. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the intellect, but it's when the intellect partners up with wisdom, then you've got the best of both worlds. But it's wisdom that leads the way. And there was an aliveness to the training that had started to vanish, and I hadn't even been aware of it. There was a difference in the energy, the feeling. When I was so proud of myself and writing on all the flip charts, the energy was different. It was like more an excitable kind of energy. When I was talking more soul to soul, it was a calmer, richer energy. That's the best I can describe. That's the best I can share. And so I shared that example with who I was speaking with yesterday. And they said, you know, Elsie, that's so interesting you say that, because about a year ago, we had all our bells and whistles with what we were doing with our modules and so on. And for some reason, the things we'd been using didn't show up when we started our training. And we didn't know what to do. And so we just, came from the heart. And it was the best training we'd ever done. And I said, well, there you go. Look at that. You already experienced that. Now, here's the interesting part as well. They had experienced living more deeply in their wisdom and then just move past it. You know what I mean? Like the next time they did their training, they went back to their module. And so that spontaneous wisdom that came out, they hadn't honored as deeply as what I'm suggesting, proposing to you now. That the more you honor that spontaneity in the moment, the more you live and work from there. I see a lot of nodding of heads, so talk to me. Tell me what this is meaning to you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. How are you? My name's John. I'm first time in the group and first time being exposed to it. So
Hi, John.
how are you? Good. I would just say I relate to the level of truth when you speak truth and people hear truth and they give you truth back. It is a different experience in the room. And I'm an attorney, so I try to get there, and I try to get there more and more. So I'm very interested in communication, and I don't know how to do it exactly as I want with ease, but I try to get there.
Wow. Wow. Hats off to you, John.
Thank you.
Applause, big applause.
Well, thank you. But I'm picking up exactly what you're saying. I feel it in the room when it happens, and I know when it's there.
Oh, I honestly, I can't tell you what that means to me. I honor that in you as a human being, as a spiritual being, and I honor that in you as an attorney.
Thank you.
You know, that is so profound, and what a thing to bring to your profession.
Okay.
Well done, John. Well done.
I don't feel like I'm done, but I'm trying.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Excellent. Wow. Yay for attorneys. Yay for John. Yeah. And who else? I know you're just dying to share. I thought I heard something in the background.
Elsie, Bill again. I certainly don't want to keep anyone else from sharing if I waited, but as I listened, I felt once again how consciousness you talked about in a kind of a new way for, you know, a way for me to a reawakening of listening to consciousness, and how you listened that day when all your papers were taken away from you and came to listen to that you were giving an opportunity to listen, to go back home, if you will. And the example you gave yesterday, that maybe those people initially consciousness had given them the opportunity and they used it and didn't get caught up and upset, but went on with their day and spoke from their heart, but then kind of overrode consciousness with their intellect and went back. And so I just hear again a little deeper maybe the message of honoring consciousness and really listening for that feeling that when things feel right, we know it, and to maybe honor that more.
That's
you know.
beautiful.
And like you say, you know, Sid always said, it's not that the intellect is bad, but if wisdom and intellect are in harmony, if our impersonal mind and our personal mind are in harmony, that's when magic happens.
Yes.
Really,
yes.
things beautiful happen. Anyway, so
Well said, Bill. Well said. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Oh, good. Karen is waving her hand there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Karen and Mark. How are you?
It is so nice to spend a Thursday morning with friends, so many beautiful people. And Elsie, thank you. That was so, so beautiful. I think that anybody who has spent time with Sid, and you hear people speaking about it all the time, he said, go live it. And I've had so many clients, so many patients, a mix of everything that I've said the same thing to this year. You don't have to be reading, looking. The learning is actually what do you do for fun? Like, just get out there. Mm-hmm. Sid took us on many adventures. And at the conference this year, they talked about exploring. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that when you get out of your way, you're just exploring. Mm-hmm. And I just thank you for reminding us.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Karen. Thank you. You know, what Karen said, twigs and vines, it's about exploring without exploring. You know, this thing about living, the nature of living, where the world just reveals itself to you without you looking to explore or looking to find more. Without intention, you know, because intention and even exploring or searching is the middleman. It's seductive in that it feels like you have to do something. You know, you know what I mean? And so when I come back to the nature of living in well-being, that's where the exploring is done without you even knowing, wow, I'm learning something new. Exploration is happening, and I wasn't looking to explore. Or deep listening is happening, and I wasn't looking to listen, but just because I'm living in such well-being, everything is more sensitive. My ability to listen, my ability to guide, my ability to draw out, my ability, as John said, to hear truth, to hear nuggets of wisdom in people that don't hear their own wisdom and then showcase it for them. You know, everything comes naturally from just living in well-being. I remember again when the early days when Sid, I just looked at the clock and I saw my word is 5 to 10. And I can't believe the time has gone so fast. But I want to share this one example and then I'll check in with you again. It could have been 2 years after, maybe even 3 years after Sid had his experience and was already living here on Salt Spring Island. And he had been invited while he was still working at the pulp mill by the plant manager to come to his office and to talk with him. And he was seeking Sid's counsel about life. And Sid found that highly irregular and remarked on it to Ken and myself, commenting that it was like the captain of a ship asking a yeoman or a cook in the galley to come and talk to the captain and advise him. It's like, really? That just isn't done. But he went into the office with humility, never ever shared what came out of that conversation, but was very, very moved by the conversation. Fast forward 3 years later, the home office of this pulp mill, which was located in Vancouver, called Sid and started to have some conversations with him. It was the head of human resources, or the VP, I think it was, of human resources, and was so taken with what Sid was sharing with him that they invited him to come into the office and meet with some of the top executives, you know, the VP of human resources and a couple of other people from his team. Sid invited me to go with him. So that, again, was, you know, training, on-the-job training. And I must say I found it very enlightening because it was so different than what I thought it would be. And you understand, I was coming from a homemaker's point of view. I was not in the corporate world or in the professional world at all. But I certainly expected Sid to maybe write on a flip chart. I certainly expected him to remain in the office of these corporate people. And instead, because the office was not very conducive to relaxation and learning, Sid suggested after about 15 minutes that we go to the park. And we ended up having an amazing conversation. He suggested I go off with one of the executives. He went off with the other. We joined together and had a wonderful lunch. At the end of the day, when we went back, to the office and got into Sid's car, the two executives were just blown away. They were almost literally skipping back into the office. They were so full of life and vim and vigor. And after that, they invited Sid again to do some team development. He said, no. He said, I'm not interested in that, but ask Elsie. And I'm sure they probably went, oh, no, really, we want you, Sid. We want the man. But nonetheless, I packed my brand new briefcase with one piece of paper in it. Talk what you know, share what you know. And I went into this retreat with the team. I hadn't a clue what to do. Sid said, just listen, and you'll know what to do. Well, I got to say I was insecure, and so I found just listening to be comforting. I could relax. And as I relaxed, of course, my listening got deeper. And what I heard was their contention. I heard them backbiting at each other. I saw that there was no teamwork. And so I thought, well, that's no surprise because they're not listening to one another. There doesn't seem to be much respect. And so a lot came to me out of that, not knowing what to do, but listen. So, we ended up having a conversation about listening and state of mind, and how out of state of mind comes respect and team development and so on and so forth. But what I'm pointing to is that out of well-being came deep listening naturally. Because there was a thing out in the world then, a technique about active listening. Right? I see nodding of heads again. I didn't know about that. I'd never heard about that till talking with Roger at one point. And then Roger and some of the psychologists said when they started to experience more consulting with Sid and with myself and some of the other early pioneers, they said, well, you're deep listening. And I went like, really? What's that? It was so natural to me and to the other pioneers. It was like, what do you mean deep listening? I'm just listening. And so then they would describe it. And I thought, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm hearing more. I'm hearing things that the person even isn't hearing. Okay, so that's what you're calling deep listening. So that's what I mean when all that you need in your life, in your sharing, is just to live in what and who you already are. Now, I'm done. And I want to hear again, if there's any other comments before we wrap it up, I would love to hear something else from someone else.
I know.
Hi, Elsie. It's Marika.
Hi, Marika.
Hi. There's a couple of things today that really resonated with me, and I just want to thank you for that. And first, that was living in stillness, like less thought. I was really struck by allowing self to be felt more just through stillness. And that ties in with just what you were talking about, and that's the listening, because that's how it comes about for me. So thank you so much, you know. And in some parts of my life, it's easier to experience it, playing with the grandkids, for example. It's easier sometimes just to live in that stillness, and in other areas, I do more thinking. And it was just a beautiful reminder, like it's all the same, and just to go back to that stillness.
Oh,
You know, helping other people, helping family. I just want to thank you for that. Very meaningful.
thank you, Marika. Thank you for sharing that. I really felt that from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elsie, I just wanted to, if I can, this is Bill again. When you talked about the difference between exploring and listening and being open, you know, I sometimes watch this little chipmunk that we have here, and he comes to the top of the step and he sits quietly at one time for 15 minutes. So he's not exploring, but he's obviously listening, smelling. He's quiet, and then he sees where to go. And that's deep exploration, if you will, with no exploration. It's the stillness that Marika just spoke of, and the quiet, and then you see where to go next. Anyway.
Thank you, Bill. I'm sorry I got distracted because for some reason, something came up that covered my Zoom.
Yeah, they must have had it set just for a certain period of time or something, although I still see you on the little screen.
Okay, so I guess so.
Anyway, I just thought that was a really beautiful differentiation between exploration from quiet, which is really just being present, and then getting clarity and seeing where to go, versus actively trying to figure out where to go. Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, obviously.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not quite sure what happened because someone is sharing their screen right now, and I'm sure they don't realize they are, and they shouldn't be able to without me having given permission, but something happened here.
Yeah.
I apologize. I want to give everyone a chance, if anybody else has anything to say.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Lynn Underhill, and I'm not quite sure why my picture is black. I'll try to figure it out before I join the next call. But Elsie, I'm just so delighted. I listened to you once before in a conversation you had with Michael Neal and people with Michael Neal. And a couple of nights ago, I found a CD from Sid and listened to it, and I just was struck by "Go Within," and his saying at the time, "Go within," and how we hear that and resist it. And I've just taken it on to go within and listen within. And so today, everything you shared just enriched that so much. And I sometimes have trouble with the inside outside because I can't even imagine an outside in the human experience, because how could there be anything but within? So thank you. Thank you so much. It's a joy to be with you.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I think it was Linda.
Yeah. Let me see if I can catch who's not muted there for a minute.
Okay.
And is there anyone else? Last chance.
Yeah.
I'd like to, if I may. Oh, how do I say? Oh, I just lost myself. Can you hear me? That's
I
Robin.
can hear you.
Okay, thanks. It's Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, Elsie. Elsie, that was wonderful. Thank you. That was amazing. I've been so looking forward to listening to this today.
And I did think of a question when you first asked about questions, but I think you've answered it. I was thinking, how do we spread the word of this beautiful teaching and understanding if we're not sure? I've sort of put, if it feels so intangible, but it's not really intangible. It's very tangible in that it's energy that we're feeling and responding with people. I'm sort of at a crossroads. I'm between work and I am a coach, but I haven't got up in coaching, and I'm sort of looking to, how to find my clients, I guess, how to talk to people, how to advertise what I do. And I think I'm getting the answer from you over and over with how you've been talking today and with people. And it sounds like go within, just keep asking within myself, excuse me, what is it I can help people with? Or am I not even asking a question? I know you sort of said sometimes just have a clear mind and just try not to explore.
Yeah.
Am I understanding correctly?
Robin, I wrote an article maybe a couple of months ago. It's on my website, and Bonnie said that she would have the information
Okay.
with my website, and it's called Spiritual Marketing.
Fabulous. Okay.
And it speaks to your question.
And
when I first started off, I did some, what do they call that? Cold calls.
Okay.
Way back in the day, where I did approach continuing education. I approached hospitals and so on with a very simple write-up about what I knew and what I wanted to offer, what came from my heart and soul, what I wanted to offer.
Right.
And nothing came out of that formally, but I got the experience of what that's like. And as time went on, what I discovered is that it's the feeling you come from that does your marketing and that draws people to you. It's not your material, your marketing material. It's not even your words. It's the feeling underlying your words and your material.
Right.
So, simple is good. But again, in everything and anything you do, the feeling, this deep feeling of appreciation for who and what we are is the underpinning, is the foundation of everything we offer. And that will guide us on how best to do it. So my form of marketing has changed over the years. Where there was first more form and then less form because my work was becoming more visible and word of mouth was spreading.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because of the feeling and because of the results.
Yes. Right.
And that's what happens now to this day. It's the feeling that draws people.
Right.
Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. I certainly understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that. Thank you. That's great.
And you're right on track. When you started off with your comments were right on track. And I just heard you wanting a bit of support for what you already see.
Wow. Okay. I can't see it for myself, but thank you. Yes, I honor that you're seeing that in me.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. You're right on track.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Lovely
Thank
to talk
you.
to you today.
Thank you, Robin.
Okay. Thanks, Elsie.
So what do you think, Bonnie?
I think that this was incredibly beautiful. Thank you so much for all that you shared with us. And I want to apologize for everybody, to everyone about the screen flipping. I'm not quite sure what happened, but that was my first. So I think I got you back at the
Well,
end.
I guess the energy was so high, the screen wanted to join us.
Yeah.
I'm going to add one more sentence just to wrap it up. And it's really just taking kind of from what Robin in my conversation was, is just for all of us to know that the simplicity of our understanding, the blessing of our understanding, is that this deep feeling of well-being is the foundation of everything else. Whatever else it is that we offer or we do or we want, it's the deep feeling that is the foundation. It's primary. Everything else is secondary. And that deep feeling is actually an expression of our true nature. So, oh, big heart. Somebody drew a big heart on the screen. Oh, I love that.
Thank you so much, Elsie. And just want to take 1 minute to say that the 3PGC webinars are the second and fourth Thursday of every month. They're at 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon Eastern time live. You can always watch the recordings on YouTube, but I did want to point that out. And if you're not getting the announcements, you can go underneath the YouTube video. There will be a link to 3pgc.org. You can go there and sign up as a member so you'll get the announcements. And the next webinar is on January 26th with Jean Catherine of Divine Play. Hope to see you all there. And Elsie, I just can't thank you enough for everything you shared. This was really incredible, very touching. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bonnie. Bye, everybody. Lots of love to you all.